Hello everyone, here is Afra Siab. Today we are going to solve Cambridge IGCSE Physics Paper 2 Multiple Choice Extended held on May-June 2020 and paper code is 0625 with variant 21. So let's start from question number 1. Question number 1. A pendulum makes 50 complete swings in 2 minutes 40 seconds. Time for the 50 swings are given. What is the time period for one complete swing? So here we have to find out the time period for one swing when the time for 50 swings are given. So first of all, I write here time for 50 swings is equal to 2 minutes 40 seconds. So first of all, we have to convert 2 minutes also into second and it becomes 2 multiplied by 60 plus 40 and whole of these time converts into second. So that the time comes to be 160 seconds. This is the time for 50 swings and we have to find out the time period for one swing. I write here it will be equal to 160 divided by 50. And the time period comes to be 3.2 seconds. So from here option B is correct. Question number 2. A student investigates the motion of a ball rolling down a slope. The diagram shows the speed v of the ball at different time t. So here is a ball that is rolling down a slope and we have to investigate the motion of this ball. The speed and the time at different position is shown. Which statement describes the motion of the ball? MCQs A. The acceleration is not constant. B. The acceleration is negative. C. The speed is decreasing. D. The velocity is constant. So first of all, here two things are given, speed and acceleration. Initially speed is 0 centimeter per second, then at time t is equal to 0.2 second, speed is 2.8 centimeter per second. At time 0.4 second, velocity is 5.1 centimeter per second and at time 0.6 second, the speed is 7.0 centimeter per second. It means that the speed is increasing here. With the passage of time, it's not decreasing. So, MCQ C is incorrect and also the D because the velocity is not constant here. Now we check the acceleration. First of all, I check here acceleration is equal to delta V over delta T, which is equal to 2.8 minus 0 divided by 0.2 minus 0. So it will be equal to 14 centimeter per second square. Now I check the acceleration for the second ball and third ball. I write here acceleration is equal to 5.1 minus 2.8 divided by 0.4 minus 0.2. So this value of acceleration will be equal to 11.5 centimeter per second square. Now I'm going to check the acceleration for the third and fourth ball. So I write here acceleration will be equal to 7.0 minus 5.1 divided by 0.6 minus 0.4. So this value of acceleration will be equal to 3.3 centimeter per second square. Now we see all of the values of the acceleration. It is 14, then 11.5, and at the end the acceleration is 3.3. It means that acceleration is not constant and it has no negative value. So option B is incorrect because acceleration is not negative, and A is correct because acceleration is not constant here. Question number 3. Which statement about acceleration is correct? MCQs A. It is related to the changing speed of the object. B. It is the distance an object travels in 1 second. C. It is the force acting on an object divided by the distance it travels in 1 second. D. It is the force acting on an object when it is near to the earth. So from here option A is correct because acceleration is equal to delta V over delta T. From the definition of acceleration, acceleration is related to the changing speed of the object. So MCQs A is correct. Question number 4. Which statement correctly describes the effect of placing a heavy load in a car? Option A. It is easier to accelerate the car and easier to bring the car to rest. B. It is easier to accelerate the car but more difficult to bring the car to rest. C. It is more difficult to accelerate the car and more difficult to bring the car to rest. D. It is more difficult to accelerate the car but easier to bring the car to rest. So from here, first of all, I suppose that there is a car at this position, and when I place heavy load in this car, then the mass of the car increase. So we require a greater force to accelerate this car, which means that it is more difficult to accelerate as well as to stop the car. So from here option C is correct. It is more difficult to accelerate the car and more difficult to bring the car to rest because we need a larger force to accelerate the car in this case when we place a heavy load in a car. Question number 5. A mass of 6.0 kg rests on the surface of a planet. On this planet, G is equal to 20 Newton per kilogram. What is the weight of the object? So here we have to find out the weight of object. I use the formula that weight is equal to mass multiplied by the value of G. The mass of the object is given, which is 6.0 kg, multiply the value of G is 20. So the value of weight will be equal to 120 Newton. So from here option D is correct. Question number 6. The mass of a measuring cylinder is 190 gram. 400 cubic centimeter of the liquid is put into the measuring cylinder. The total mass of the measuring cylinder and the liquid is 560 gram. 4 solid objects are lowered in turn into the liquid. The densities of the object are shown. The density of the first object is 0.40 gram per cubic centimeter. For object 2, density is 0.90 gram per cubic centimeter. For third object, density is 1.2 gram per cubic centimeter, and for the fourth object, density is 2.7 gram per cubic centimeter. Which object will float in the liquid? So which one of the following objects floats in the liquid? For that we have to find out the density. So first of all, I write here Mass of Mahin cylinder is given 190 gram, while the total mass of the cylinder and liquid is 560. So I write here the mass of liquid it is equal to 560 minus 190. So the mass will be equal to 370 gram. Next the volume is given, which is equal to 400 cubic centimeter. Here we have to find out the density of the liquid. Density is equal to mass per unit volume. Mass is 400. The value of mass is 370 divided by volume is 400. So that density will be equal to 0.925. And the unit of density is gram per cubic centimeter. I write here density of liquid is equal to 0.925 gram per cubic centimeter. Now we have to compare the density of liquid with the density of the object, and if the density of the object is smaller as compared to the density of liquid, then the object will float. So for the object 1, density is 0.40. So this density is smaller as compared to 0.925. I write here density for the object 1 is smaller as compared to density of liquid. For object 2, again here is density for the object 2. It is also smaller as compared to density of the liquid. For the object 3, density is 1.2 and 1.2 is larger. It means that the density of the third object is larger as compared to density of liquid. For the fourth object, again density is greater as compared to the density of liquid. So from here we can see that for the object 1 and object 2, density is smaller as compared to liquid. It means that first and second object float. So from here option B is correct. 1 and 2 only. Question number 7. The diagram shows a wooden beam PQ of negligible weight which is attached to a wall by a hinge at P and kept in a horizontal position by a vertical rope attached at Q. The beam is 3.0 meter in length. A man of weight 800 Newton walk along the beam from point P to Q. What is the distance of the man? So here we have to find out the distance of a man from the point P when the tension in the rope at Q becomes equal to 500 Newton. So first of all, here we have to find out the distance of the man from the point P. And the total beam length is given, which is 3.0 meter. And here the tension is equal to 500 Newton. While the weight of the man is equal to 800 Newton. So first of all, I use here the principle of moment, that the total clockwise movement will be equal to the anti-clockwise movement. I write here clockwise movement will be equal to anti-clockwise movement. So, the clockwise movement will be the product of force and the perpendicular distance from the pivot point. So, actually the clockwise movement is caused by the man. So, I write here the weight of man, which is given 800 Newton, multiply by I suppose that the distance of this man from the point P is L, and we have to find out the value of L. So I multiply this weight with L. It will be equal to anti-clockwise moment, which is caused by the tension in the rope. So I write here 500 multiplied by the perpendicular distance for the case of rope will be from point P to Q. I am going to label here this distance. So this is basically equal to 3.0 meter. So multiply 500 with 3.0. The value of L will be equal to 1500 divided by 800 and length will be equal to 1.9 meter. So this is the value of the distance of this span from the point P. From here option C is correct. Question number 8. Which quantity is a vector quantity? Acceleration, B distance, C speed and D mass. So from here acceleration is a vector quantity. All of the other are scalars. Question number 9. An object of mass 1.2 kg is moving with a velocity of 2.0 meter per second when it is acted on by a force of 4.0 Newton. The velocity of the object increases to 5.0 meter per second. For what period of the time does the force act on the object? So here we have to find out the value of time. We know that impulse is the product of force and time, and it is also be equal to change of momentum. So I write here I is equal to F cross T. It is also be equal to delta P, where delta P is the change of momentum. From here T will be equal to delta P over force. It will be M V minus U divided by F. The value of mass is 1.2 multiplied by velocity is 5.0 minus 2.0 divided by force, which is given 4.0 Newton. So the value of time will be equal to 0.90 and the unit of time is second. So the time will be equal to 0.90 second. Here option A is correct. Question number 10. The diagram shows part of a roller coaster ride with the car at different positions. The car runs freely down from position X to the position Y and up the hill on the other side. So first of all, position X is at the top while the position Y is at the bottom. What happens to the kinetic energy and to the gravitational potential energy of the car as it moves from position X to Y? So what happens to the kinetic energy and potential energy? For that we have to know about kinetic energy and potential energy. Potential energy is related with the height of the object. The greater the height, greater will be the potential energy. But the kinetic energy is related with the motion of the object. I am going to write the formula that gravitational potential energy is equal to mgh, while the kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. In our case, as the car is moving from point X to Y, it means that it is coming from the height towards the bottom. So, at the top, at point X, it has only gravitational potential energy, while at the point Y, it has kinetic energy. So when the body moves from some height towards the ground, then its gravitational potential energy decreases and it is converted into kinetic energy. At the bottom, all of the energy is kinetic energy. Here, potential energy is 0. So from here, kinetic energy and the gravitational potential energy is given. MCQs A. decreases, decreases. B, decreases, increases. C, increases, decreases. And D, increases, increases. So from here option C is correct, which shows that as the car moves from position X to Y, the gravitational potential energy decrease, but the kinetic energy increase, because the loss of gravitational potential energy is equal to gain of kinetic energy. Question number 11. Which energy resource does not have the sun as original source? MCQs: A, coal. B, geothermal. C, hydroelectric. And D, wind. So from here geothermal energy is actually obtained from the earth. So this energy resource does not have the sun as the original source. So from here option B is correct. Question number 12. The diagram shows a solid block resting on a bench. The dimensions of the block are shown. On which labeled surface should the block rest to produce the smallest pressure on the bench? So where the pressure is small, at point P, Q, R, D. P, Q and R produce the same pressure. So first of all, we see the surface P, Q and R and tell that where the pressure is smallest. Pressure is equal to force over area. From here pressure is inversely proportional to area. The surface that has larger area, it will produce less pressure. So from P, Q and R, P is the surface that has the largest area. So when the area of P is larger, then it produces the lesser pressure or smaller pressure. It means for the surface P, the pressure will be less. So from here option A is correct. Question number 13. The pressure due to liquid on an object immersed in that liquid is 4500 Pascal. The density of liquid is 900 kg per cubic meter. What is the depth of the object below the surface of the liquid? So here we have to find out the depth of the object. I write here the pressure due to the liquid on the object is equal to product of density, acceleration due to gravity and depth. From here we have to find out the value of H. So it will be equal to P over rho G. Now I am going to put values here. H will be equal to 4500 divided by density is 900. Multiply the value of G is 10. So that the value of H will be equal to 0.5 meter. But in the answers we are given the depth in centimeter. It means that we have to convert here unit. So depth will be equal to 0.5 multiplied by 100, which is equal to 50 centimeter. So from here option C is correct. Question number 14. A gas is heated in a sealed container. The volume of the container does not change. So here volume is fixed. What happens to the molecules of the gas? The average distance between the molecules increases. B. The average kinetic energy of the molecules increases. C. The mass of each molecule increases. And D. The volume of each molecule increases. So from here, when a gas is heated in a sealed container, the average kinetic energy of the molecules increases because the molecules collide with each other and also with the wall of the container, and there is very large collision, due to which the average kinetic energy of the molecules increases. So from here option B is correct. Question number 15. Water in a beaker evaporates when left on bench for a period of time. Which three factors all affect the rate of evaporation of the water? So which one of the following factor affects the rate of evaporation of the water? Option A, wind speed, surface area and temperature. B, wind speed, temperature and volume. C, wind speed, surface area and volume. D, surface area, temperature and volume. So from here, the factors that can affect the rate of evaporation is the speed of wind, surface area and temperature. When the temperature is higher, the rate of evaporation will be large. By increasing the surface area, we can increase the rate of evaporation. Also, when there is a wind blowing across the surface, then the rate of evaporation also be affected. So from here, option A is correct. Question number 16. A solid is heated, causing it to expand. What effect does this have on its mass and on its density? So when the solid heated, then it will expand. Due to expansion, the volume increases. I write here, volume increases, but the mass remains same. So we have to describe the effect on the mass and density. Density is mass over volume. When the mass is constant and volume increases, then density decreases. It means that by heating, the mass remains same but the density decreases. Now we see the options. Mass and density. Option A, decreases. So it is incorrect because both of the quantities decreasing. B, decreases and stay constant. So from here, the density stay constant, which is incorrect. C, stay constant and decrease. So this is correct because the mass remains the same but the density decreases because the volume is increases here. Question number 17. The diagram shows 4 blocks of steel. The blocks are all drawn to the same scale. The same quantity of the thermal energy is given to each block. Which block shows the greatest rise in temperature? So for which one of the following block the rise in temperature is largest? In this question we can see that we have 4 blocks. Each of the block has different volume. So first of all, for the block A, the volume is lesser. So the amount of heat energy will transfer to it easily. As a result, it shows the greater rise in temperature. So from here, option A is correct. For the other blocks, the volume is greater, due to which a very small amount of energy will be transferred, and because it is very difficult to transfer energy here. That's why they show smaller rise in temperature. Question number 18. Why are metals better thermal conductors than other solids? Option A, metals contain free electrons which help transfer the energy. B, molecules in matter are in fixed position. C, molecules in the metal can move freely. D, the molecules in metals vibrate faster than those in other solid. So we know that the metal contains a large number of free electrons, due to which the conduction is possible in the metals. So from here, option A is correct, that the metal contains large number of free electrons which help transfer the energy. Question number 19. Two freezers X and Y are identical except that one has a door opening at the front and the other has a door opening at the top. So we have two freezers X and Y, X has door opening at the front, while the Y has door opening at the top. Both doors are the same size and are opened for the same amount of time. Which freezer gains the least amount of thermal energy in this time and why? So, between these two freezers X and Y, which freezer gains the least amount of thermal energy? So, first of all, we see both of these freezers. Because of the cooled air usually sinks under freezer compartment located at the top of freezer. Here, it creates a circulating stream of the air that cools everything in the freezer. The hot air surrounding will remain outside the freezer because it is lesser denser than the cooled air. So I write here the density of hot air is small as compared to cooled air. For this reason, the freezer with least heat energy is Y because of the cooled air drops. So from here, freezer gains the least thermal energy and reason it is Y because the cooled air falls. So from here, option C is correct. Question number 20. A wave of frequency 6600 Hz travels 1320 meters in 4.0 seconds. What is the wavelength? So here we have to find out the wavelength. By using the wave equation, V is equal to F lambda. Here V is the speed, F is frequency and lambda is wavelength. So lambda will be equal to V over F. Frequency is given which is 6600 Hz, but the speed is not given. So we can calculate the speed by using formula the distance over time. Distance is 1320 meter divided by time is 4.0 second. So from here V will be equal to 330 meter per second. Now I am going to put values here. V is 330 divided by frequency is 6600. So the value of wavelength will be equal to 0.05 meters. From here option A is correct, which shows the wavelength 0.050 meters. Question number 21. The diagram shows a wave. What are the amplitude and wavelength of this wave? So here we have to find out the amplitude and the wavelength of this wave. So first of all, amplitude is the maximum displacement of a body from its mean position. Here mean position is shown by the dotted line. Now I am going to draw the maximum displacement of the body. So this is the maximum displacement of the body from mean position, which is known as amplitude. So amplitude is basically equal to 3 cm. Wavelength is the distance between two consecutive crusts or trough. The portion of the wave that is above the mean line is basically crust, and the portion of the wave that is below the mean line, this is trough. So the distance between two consecutive crust or trough is known as wavelength. So first crust is this, while the second crust is this. Now I am going to label the distance that is equal to wavelength. So this distance is basically equal to wavelength, which is represented by lambda, and it is also given that this distance is 8 cm. It means that amplitude is 3 cm while the wavelength is 8 cm. So from here, in MCQs A Amplitude is 3 cm while the wavelength is 4 cm. But the wavelength is 8 cm, so it is incorrect. B. Amplitude is 3 cm and wavelength is 8 cm. So B option is correct. Question number 22. Which statement is correct? A. The speed of light in the glass is equal to the speed of light in vacuum multiplied by the refractive index of the glass. We know the definition of refractive index, N is equal to C over V. Here C is equal to N multiplied by V. It means that the speed of light in vacuum is equal to product of the refractive index and the speed of light in the glass. So this statement is incorrect because here it is given that the speed of light in glass, which is represented by V, it is equal to product of speed of light in vacuum, which is C multiplied by N. So this is incorrect. B. The incidence angle of the light ray at an air glass surface is the angle between the ray and the glass surface. So angle of incidence is basically the angle between the normal ray and the ray of incidence. So this is also incorrect. Option C. The sine of the critical angle at an air glass surface is equal to 1 over refractive index of the glass. So this is correct. Because sine of critical angle is equal to 1 over refractive index. So option C is correct from here. Option D. The angle of refraction for light passing through an air glass surface is proportional to the angle of incidence at the surface. It is also incorrect. Question number 23. A narrow beam of white light passes through a prism and is dispersed into a spectrum. So first of all, here is white light that falls on the prism and then it disperses. Which row is correct? Color 1, color 2 and color 3. Here is color 1, 2 and 3. So which one of these colors are blue, yellow and red? First of all, I write here red, yellow and blue. The wavelength of the red is larger as compared to yellow and blue light. Blue light has the shortest wavelength. So, the light that has shortest wavelength will bend more. In the case of blue light, there is more bending. And for the red light, there is less bending. This means that the red light will be at the top while the blue light is at bottom. So from here, red light is shown by color 1 while the blue light is shown by the color 3. And 2 is basically the yellow light that is between red and blue. So from here, we see the option A, blue, yellow and red. It is incorrect because blue is color 3. B, red, blue and yellow. It is also incorrect because the color 3 is blue. C, red, yellow and blue. So here C option is correct. Question number 24. An intruder alarm sensor detects that person is warmer than his surroundings. Which type of electromagnetic waves does the sensor detect? Infrared, B, radio, C, ultraviolet and D, visible light. So these are the infrared rays that does the sensor detect. Question number 25. Sound travels through the air as a series of compressions and rarefaction. Which statement correctly compares a compression with a rarefaction? So here we have to compare the compression and rarefaction. MCQs A. In a compression, the wavelength is longer than the rarefaction. So it is incorrect because the wavelength is constant. Option B. In a compression, the wavelength is shorter than the rarefaction. It is also. Option C. In a compression, the density of air is greater than in a rarefaction. D. In a compression, the density of air is lower than the rarefaction. So from here, compression is a region where the particles are closer and here the density is larger as compared to rarefaction. So the MCQ-C is correct, which shows that in a compression the density of air is larger as compared to the rarefaction. Question number 26. 4 nails A, B, C and D are tested to find which makes the strongest permanent magnet. One of the nail is placed against a bar magnet and the number of paper clips which the nail can support it is recorded. So here is a bar magnet and then we attach a nail with this bar magnet and there are paper clips that are attached vertically. The bar magnet is then removed and the number of paper clips remaining attached to the nail is recorded. Each nail is tested individually. Which nail becomes the strongest permanent magnet? So which one of these nails is the strongest permanent magnet? Number of paper clips attached to the nail, bar magnet present and bar magnet removed. So here option A is 2, 0, B 2 and 1, C 2 and 3, D 2, 5 and 5 and 2. So first of all, we check the percentage of the number of paper clips that is attached with the nail when the bar magnet is removed. So here, when the bar magnet is present, the number of paper are 2, but when the bar magnet is removed, 0 paper remains attached with the nail. So this means that 0% of the nail remaining. For MCQs B, initially when the bar magnet is present there are 2 nails, but when the bar magnet is removed there is only 1 nail. It means that here 50% of the nails remain. Option C, here is 4 and then 3. So when the bar magnet is removed, there is only 75% of the nails remain. So I write here 75% of nails remain. And option D, bar magnet present then there are 5 and when the bar magnet is removed there are only 2, which means that about 40% of the nails remain. From here, 75% is the largest, which means that the 75% of the nails are attached even the bar magnet is removed. So the option C is correct one. Question number 27. The circle shows one method of magnetizing a steel bar. How can the circuit can be altered so that it can be used to demagnetize the magnetized steel bar? So which one of the following method is used to demagnetize the steel bar? Option A, remove the steel bar from the coil. while the current is switched on. B. Replace the DC supply with an AC supply and gradually reduce the supply voltage to 0. C. Reverse the polarity of the DC supply. D. Reverse the polarity of the DC supply and gradually reduce the supply voltage to 0. So from here, option B is correct, that we have to replace the DC supply with the AC supply and reduce the supply voltage to 0. So B is correct. Question number 28. A student uses the circuit shown to determine the resistance of two identical resistors. So both of these resistors are identical. The voltmeter reading is 2.2 volt and the ammeter reading is 0.25 ampere. What is the resistance of each resistor? So here we have to find out the resistance of each resistor when the voltmeter reading and the ammeter reading is given. So in the circuit we can see that here is the ammeter and also the voltmeter. Voltmeter is used to measure the potential difference while the ammeter is used to measure the current. So I write here the value of current that is measured by the ammeter. It is 0.25 ampere. The value of potential difference which is measured by the voltmeter, it is 2.2 volt. And we have to find out the resistance. First of all, I am going to find out the equivalent resistance of this circuit by using Ohm's law. V is equal to I Re. So Re will be equal to V over I. V is given 2.2 divided by current is 0.25. So the resistance will be equal to 8.8 ohms. This is the resistance of the whole circuit. But here we can see that there are two resistors that are connected in series. For the series combination, I use the formula that equivalent resistance is equal to the resistance of each individual resistor. So here R1 and R2 are basically this one. Both of these resistance are equal. So I write here R1 is equal to R2, which is equal to R, and we have to find out the value of R. So it will be R plus R, which is 2R, where Re is 8.8. So R will be equal to 8.8 divided by 2, which is 4.4 ohms. So this is the resistance. So option C is correct. It means that R1 is also equal to 4.4 ohm and R2 is also 4.4 ohms. Question number 29. An electric fire is connected to a 240 volt supply and transfers energy at a rate of 1.0 kilowatt. How much charge passes through the fire in 1.0 hour? So here we have to find out the amount of charge that is passing through the wire. So first of all, I write here power, which is the product of current and potential difference. And also current is equal to rate of flow of charges, which is Q over T. So it will be Q V over T. Here we have to find out the value of charges, which is represented by Q. So Q will be equal to power, which is 1000 multiplied by time. Time is given 1 hour and 1 hour contains 60 minutes and 1 minute contains 60 seconds. So it will be 3600 seconds divided by voltage, which is given 240 volt. So the charges will be equal to 15,000 coulomb, which is 1.5 into 10 की power 4 coulomb. So from here, option C is correct. Next question, 30. The diagram shows an incomplete circuit. The temperature and the light levels around the circuit remains unchanged. Four electrical components are connected in turn across PQ. The cell is reverse. And the four electrical components are connected again in turn across PQ. For which component is there a significant change in the magnitude of the current? Option A, diode, light dependent resistor, or thermistor. So first of all, here we also have changed the polarity of the cell. So I consider here diode. I make here first of all diode. So diode is basically a device or the component that is used to allow the current to flow only in one direction. So here cell is positive while it is negative. It means that current is flowing from positive to negative. So it is the direction of the current. The diode, this part is basically positive while this line basically shows negative. So it is positive and negative. It means that here is forward biasing. Current can easily pass through it. But after that we reverse the cell and then there is also the significant amount of the current passing through it. So this is basically the diode that allow the current to flow only in one direction. If I make the diode in reverse side like this, no, it is positive and it is negative. So there is also the current passing through this circuit when the cell is reversed. So here option A is correct, which is diode. Question number 31. In the circuit shown, A1 and A2 are the emitters. Switch S is closed. Which row is correct? The resistance of the whole circuit, reading of A1 and reading of A2. So first of all, we consider here the case when the switch is open. It means that there is no current passing through the circuit when the switch is open. So there is only one resistance, which is this one in the circuit when the switch is open. I suppose it is R1 and this is R2. When I close the switch, then the current passing through the circuit and there are two resistances in the circuit. And we can see here that R1 and R2 are connected in parallel. In the parallel combination, the combined resistance is smaller as compared to the individual resistance R1 and R2. So I write here first of all, in the parallel combination, equivalent resistance or total resistance of the circuit is smaller than R1 and R is also smaller than R2, which means that the whole circuit resistance decreases here. So when the resistance decreases here, then the current passing through the circuit increase. There is large current passing through the circuit. So I tick here option B, which shows that the resistance of the whole circuit decreases and the reading of emitter A1 and A2 increases because the current is increases in the circuit. Question number 32. Which symbol represents an OR gate? Here we have to take the symbol for the OR gate. So this is basically option A, which shows the OR gate. Option B is NOR gate. while C is AND gate and D is NAND gate. So option A is correct. Question number 33. A digital circuit consists of two logic gates. When the input to the circuit is 1 and 1, the output is 0. So first of all, here is a figure which shows the input 1 and 1 and output is 0. Which combination of the logic gates gives this result? Now we'll check all of these one by one. First of all, we check the first combination of the logic gate. Both of the inputs are 1, 1. Then this gate is basically NAND gate. NAND gate is obtained when we apply NOT gate over AND gate. So when I apply AND gate here, 1, 1 gives 1. Because in the AND gate, both of the inputs are high, then the output will be high. And when I apply NOT over it, it becomes 0. So here is 0. Then again there is NOT gate. When I apply NOT gate over it, then it becomes 1. So here the input 1 and 1 gives output 1. So this is incorrect. We check the second one. Here are inputs 1 and 1. And when I apply NOT over the input 1, then it becomes 0. So this input comes as it is here. Next is OR gate. In the OR gate, if any one of the input is high, the output will be high. So here 1 is high output, while here 1 is high input, while 0 is low input. So it will be 1 when both of these combine by OR gate. Next is option C. Here I again consider 1 and 1, and this is AND gate. Next is NOT. When the both inputs are high, the output will be high in AND gate. So here is 1 and this one changes into 0 when there is NOT gate. So C option is correct, that when both of the inputs are 1, 1, the output will be 0. In the option D, we will check it 1 and 1. This one changes into 0 and this comes as it is. So 1 and 0 by combining NAND gate gives 1. So this is also incorrect. Question number 34. The diagram shows a wire between the poles of a magnet. The wire is perpendicular to the page. So this wire is perpendicular to the page. Here is left and right. There is a magnet which is shown by the north and south pole. The wire is moved and the current is induced upwards out of the page. So the current is out of page, while the magnetic field is from north to south pole. In which direction is the wire moved? So basically we have to find out the direction in which the wire is moved, which means that we have to find out force in this case. So I write here the direction of current. It is out of paper, while the magnetic field is from north to south. Now I will apply right hand rule here. First of all, I have to place fingers of my right hand in the direction of current and have to curl this finger in the direction of magnetic field. Then my thumb will show the direction of force. In this case, the force will be from right to left, means that option B is correct. Question number 35. 100% efficient transformer converts a 240 volt input voltage to 12 volt output voltage. The output power of the transformer can be maximum of 20 watt. The output is connected to two 0.3 ampere bulbs in parallel. One of the bulb fails. How does the current in the primary coil changes? So here we have to find out the current in the primary coil. First of all, we have two bulbs in the parallel combination at the output and one of them is fused. If one of the bulb fails, then there is no effect on the value of the current, because in the parallel circuit there are more than one path for the flow of current. If the one bulb fails, then the current will pass through the second bulb. So I write here, I have to find out the current in primary coil, while the current in secondary coil is 0.30 ampere and voltage of primary coil is 240 volt while the voltage of secondary coil is 12 volt. So transformer is 100% efficient. It means that the input power is equal to output power. So I write here input power is equal to output power. Input power is basically for the primary coil. IP Vp is equal to Is Vs. From here IP is equal to Is Vs over Vp. Now I am going to put values here. 0.30 divided by 240. So the value of the current in the primary coil comes to be 0.015 ampere. It means that we see the options. Option A, it decreases by 0.30 ampere. B, it decreases by 0.015 ampere. So option B is correct, where the value of the current is given, which is equal to 0.015 ampere. Question number 36. Cables transmit electrical power from the output of the transformer at a power station to the input of the transformer at a substation. So there is transformer at the power station whose output is given to the input of the transformer at substation. The power at the output of the transformer at the power station is 400 megawatt. Which situation delivers the most power to the input of the transformer at the substation? So when we have to deliver the most power, it means that there is very small power loss, or loss due to the resistance is very small. So in this case, the resistance value should be small, because we have to deliver large amount of current. So when the resistance is small, R is equal to resistivity length over area. It will be 4 rho L over pi d square. So when the resistance is small, diameter will be large. So I write here diameter is large and the potential difference should be larger. So from here, potential difference at power station transformer, output in kilovolt and diameter of the cables. Option A, 200 large, 200 small, 400 large, 400 small. So it will be option C, because here the potential difference is larger and also the diameter of the cable is large. Question number 37. Uranium-235 is a radioactive isotope. It undergoes a chain of decays and eventually forms the stable isotope lead-207. These two isotopes are represented as shown. So first of all, here is uranium and lead. During this chain of decay, how many protons and how many neutrons are lost from a single nucleus of uranium-235 to form of a single nucleus of lead-207? Number of protons and number of neutrons. So first of all, in the symbol, this position basically represents the atomic number, while this position represents the mass number. It means that 92 is the atomic number, while the mass number of uranium is 235. So, atomic number is basically equal to number of protons. So, in the case of uranium, the number of protons are 92, while for the lead, the number of protons are 82. So, the number of proton lost will be 92 minus 82, which is 10. Next, we have to find out the number of protons. The number of protons for uranium-235, it will be equal to 235 minus 92, which is 143. While for lead, the number of neutrons are 207 minus 82, which is 125. So the number of neutrons lost will be equal to 143 minus 125, which is equal to 18. From here, option A is correct. Question number 38. A radioactive material has a half-life of 20 days. A sample of the material contains 8.0 into 10 की power 10 atoms. How many atomic nuclei have decayed after 60 days? So first of all, here we have to find out the number of decayed nuclei. First of all, I'll find out the number of half-lives. It is equal to total time divided by half-life. Total time is 60 days divided by half-life is 20 days. So it will be equal to 3. It means that the total half-lives are 3. So the initial sample is 8.0 into 10 की power 10. When the first half-life pass, then there will be 4.0 into 10 की power 10 atoms, because half-life is a time during which the number of atoms remain half. So this is first half-life. When the second half-life pass, the number of atoms will be 2.0 into 10 की power 10. When the third half-life pass, then there will be 1.0 into 10 की power 10 atoms, which means that the number of undecayed atom will be 1.0 into 10 की power 10. I write here number of undecayed atoms is equal to 1.0 into 10 की power 10 atoms. But we have to find out the total number of decayed atom. So I write here number of decayed atom, it will be equal to the total atoms minus the number of undecayed atom. So it will be 8.0 into 10 की power 10 minus 1.0 into 10 की power 10, which is equal to 7.0 into 10 की power 10 atoms. So from here option D is correct. Question number 39. A thin sheet of paper is placed between a radioactive source and a radiation detector. The count rate falls to a very low reading. From this result, which type of radiation is the source emitting? So from here it is given that a thin sheet of paper is placed. So when we place a thin sheet of paper, then the count rate reduces. Alpha particles can be stopped by the thin sheet of paper. It means that the source is emitting alpha particles only. So from here, option A is correct, which is alpha particles. Question number 40. Alpha particles, beta particles, and gamma rays are emitted by radioactive nuclei when they decay. Which emissions can be deflected by an electric field? MCQs A. Alpha particles and beta particles only. B. Beta particles and gamma rays only. C. Gamma rays and alpha particles only. D. Alpha particles, beta particles, and gamma rays. So only those particles that can be deflected by the electric field that has charge, as the alpha particle is positively charged, while the beta particle has negative charge. So both of these particles can be deflected by the electric field but in opposite direction. And gamma rays is neutral. It do not have any charge. It means that the gamma rays cannot be deflected by the electric field. So from here option A is correct, which shows alpha particles and beta particles only.